It's Rome and welcome to another episode of Home Front. We are here at Dwellings in a beautiful setting with our beautiful guests. Ladies and gentlemen, with me today I have Dr. Asha Pemberton, a pediatrician, and she specializes in adolescent care.
That's right, adolescent medicine. Thanks for having me, Rome.
Thank you for being here again on another season. We're in season 2. We get through. So last season we were talking about adolescents, and it has been almost like 20 months now in terms of this pandemic. How are they keeping up mentally?
The thing about it is that adolescents are resilient. And by that I mean, having faced adversity, they have the capacity to bounce back and be even better. Having said that, the pandemic has really produced uncertainty for adolescents in a number of ways. Perhaps the most significant way is towards their social development and socialization. Hanging out with friends is important to teenagers and young adults. If you think back to our day, spending time with people that you care about occupies a major significance in their lives. And so having to stay at home and isolate for health purposes has been difficult for young people. So we do look forward to the days in which they can spend more time.
Yeah, because I know they would want to socialize with their friends and that sort of thing. Would you say that social media has helped them to cope, or it has been, I don't know what to say. Has it affected them negatively or positively in terms of the socialization aspect?
Right, a frequently asked question. So social media and being online really has been the only way in which teenagers can connect. And so from that perspective, it is definitely a positive. What we have to recognize, though, is that adolescence is a stage of development. And so a 12-year-old is an adolescent. And so the limits you would put on their social media use would be different to a 17-year-old. So we must bear in mind the stage of development that a young person is in. Early adolescents really do need to have supervision and limits, because online you can chat with friends and you could also look at a lot of inappropriate content, and that's sort of the dark side of it all. So I'm in no way saying that being online is a problem, but based on the age of your child and their stage of development and their stage of understanding, you as parent have to put things in place to make sure that they are protected.
To monitor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And last season you mentioned something about concrete thinking for adolescents.
Right. So that's all about the teen brain. So as I mentioned, adolescence is a stage of development through which children transition into adulthood. Adolescence starts with puberty, so maybe around 9 or 10 years of age, and it ends sometimes well into the 20s, Rome. So there are some 20-year-olds who haven't quite finished that stage of development and are still quite young in their behavior, right? So the teen brain is a mythical creature. So there are parts of the brain that aren't as fully developed in adolescence as other parts. And so you mentioned concrete thinking. Coming into adolescence, young people really live in the here and now. They are kind of functionally unable to think about the future consequences of present behavior. So they want to do something now because it feels good now. And if they don't get it now, they're vexed, they're miserable, they're sullen. You get the picture. As they traverse through adolescence, so coming to 15, 16, 17, they learn what is called abstract thinking. So they can think outside of the box a little bit. They recognize that if I turn on the stove and put a piece of paper, it will catch on fire and I can actually cause, an injury to my house. So they're able to put together some of the consequences of behavior slowly, and that is what abstract thinking is.
Okay. And you mentioned the development stages as the adolescent grows older, and you mentioned that some of in the young 20s is still, as we would say, a bit immature. Right? Is it a case where you've seen a gender bias? Well, not gender bias, a gender discrepancy where I always hear this, that women or the girls mature faster than the boys?
So the thing is, our females enter puberty earlier than males, and they complete the process earlier than males. So if you compare a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy, you will often find the girl having a bit more abstract thinking, some more organizational skills. They're usually more complete physically in terms of puberty than the boy, because the process starts and ends differently across the genders, all right? But going into the young adult years, what we know now through research and through observational sort of information is that the teen brain development does not actually end until age 25. So the early 20s are now being incorporated into the adolescent stage. And so when, in my research and reviews in our medical side of things, we now use the term adolescent and young adult medicine, because young adults seem to have more in common with teenagers than they do with maybe a 30-something-year-old.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Because young adults seem to have more in common with teenagers than they do with maybe a 30-something-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that early 20s phase, is it that we give them some more time to develop themselves fully?
Well, I would say give them the space to learn who they are, offer them opportunities to find their sense of identity. As parents of young adults, you still have to guide them. So for the parents on listening to this program today, do not underestimate the power you have to guide the behavior of your young adult child. Yes, they're legally adults. Yes, they can make their own decisions, but there's still much wisdom that they can learn from you. Culturally, we tend to say, well, you're a big man now, you go and do your own thing, and you deal with the consequences. But I want to encourage parents to recognize that because of changes in parenting, young adults, as I said, oftentimes still have teenage types of thinking. Some of them cannot manage their affairs appropriately. Some of them are very dependent on their parents. So that young person still needs to be shepherded through to get to that place where they are fully functioning.
And I fully agree with this, and I would give you all a personal story with that. Is because when I was a teen and turning 18, 19, as Trinis would say, you start to get mannish. So I started to get mannish in my father's house. And he would be giving me advice based on his life experiences. And he would always warn me and he would say, don't make the same mistakes that I made, that he would have made. And I would turn and tell him, leave me now, let me make my own mistakes.
Right.
And later on, when I look back at it, I regretted some of those things because if I just listened, I would not have made the exact same mistakes that he would have made that he was trying to tell me. And he kind of took a hands-off approach after a little while because I started to get managed. So he was like, let me leave him. But now looking back at it, I would always advise parents to still shepherd your children, even in those late teens, early 20s, because they do need the guidance. And they would listen eventually. And even if they don't listen at that point in time, you would know that it's for their own good.
Exactly.
And they would appreciate it later on.
So the communication skills and methods would change. So perhaps with a younger child, parents would be a bit more firm and you have to do it this way. In the young adult years, just don't give up. So rather than taking a hands-off approach, as you described, it's just to continue to have conversations, find ways to give the information in a non-confrontational way. And when young adults make mistakes, as they will, as we all did, I encourage parents not to do the I told you so, you see, you went and you did this. Say, well, you know what, this is what's happened. How can we regroup? How can we come back together and take another step forward? So it's a difference in approach to the young adults because we recognize that they are too still in a stage of development.
And there's definitely a difference in terms of communicating as well. And I know that you mentioned a term called teen speak. What is teen speak?
So in every generation, young people come up with their own culture, right? So the way that they speak and the words that they use may not be the literal translation of the words that we would know. So things like cool and vibing, we might assume as adults that we understand it, but I say to the parents that I work with all the time, if your child uses language or phrases that you don't understand, take the time to ask them what they mean. Don't take it upon yourself to assume because you quite rightly might be wrong and then you go down a whole different path.
Well, even in our time, it would have been things like bad.
Yeah.
And if a parent took that literally, they would think it bad. Because I would say, boy, real bad in this.
Exactly.
But bad in my time meant good.
Meant good. Something that you would want to be in a way.
Yeah, you would say that real bad or that real, and bad meant like cool. It was hip. Well, they can't use hip because we sound old if we say that hip or whatever.
Exactly.
And I would remember my parents always saying, why are you saying everything bad? Why it bad? And I had to explain to them, well, bad means good.
Yeah.
And they were like, how could bad mean good? That not making sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Even as somebody who works with teenagers daily, I do not assume anything. I always say, you know what, tell Dr. Asha, what does that mean exactly? Because sometimes I'm very wrong. And the other thing is that young people like to teach older people. And so
Right.
if you ask them what they mean, they take great delight in letting you know, well, this is what this means and that's what's going on. So it's education for me. Things keep changing, right? Because a concept or word can mean something today and next day it means something different. So it helps you kind of stay abreast of what's going on.
Yeah,
So
it
parents,
evolves.
take the time to understand.
So some of the teen speak we would share with you all too, because I still consider myself young and in touch and hip and
There you
bad.
go.
And we can touch on some of them. I know that lit
Yes.
is a common one.
Yeah, that's kind of vibesy, fun. It's cool. So if you're lit, you're together. Everything is in order.
Everything lit. And then they use lit too, like if you go to a party
Yep.
and it was real fun, it was real vibes, they would say that party was lit. So that
Yeah.
you all learn lit. They would say less.
Yeah.
Say less and facts.
Yeah.
So say less and facts means like you're right. So it's if I'm saying something, I make a good point and they agree with it, they would say less.
Yes.
Or they would say or facts.
Yes, and wet. Wet does not mean a literal wet. I think it also means somebody who has it kind of going on, but please, I could be wrong. But it does not mean wet with water.
Wet
that much
with
I
water,
know.
right. And then they use the phrase wet man.
Right, that's
So they
right.
say he's a real
That's
wet
right,
man.
that's right.
Means that they use it a lot of the time in terms of our ladies man too.
Right.
Like he's a real wet man and he has money or he has ladies and that they use it with him driving a Tida too. So they would say all wet man is driving a Tida.
So you see, Rome, you are ahead of me on some of this.
I'm thinking
Driving
of
a
some, yeah, so those are some of the terms that you would hear some of the teens and some of the younger people using.
Right.
And you may be confused as to what it means, but it's not a totally different language, it's just their own way of speaking and relating with each
And
other.
it happens in every single generation and will continue to change. This is part of the dynamics of young people and adolescents through the life course.
Yeah, because I remember my older brother, he would say things like, you're a real Dan, and he would say fresh, and a real sick. And now we would never use those terms.
Yeah, it will date us right away.
And I guess the other generation to come after this one will probably using different terms as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's just for us to be able to start to translate some of the things. But you're saying, ask them what they mean.
Ask them and spend time, and the more that you spend time with young people, the better you get to know them, the better you get to know the culture in which they are living, which is a different, to our culture, and the better you are as a parent to connect with them and guide them.
But you don't feel if an older person using the younger teenagers' terms, it would make us sound like we're trying too hard?
Usually they would laugh.
Because I can wonder, I just picture you going to your kids and saying, yeah, last night I went Queens Hall and it was lit.
Yeah, that's why I don't. That's why I don't.
And they'll be like, Mommy, police.
Not for you, not for you.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So do we keep using our same terms from our generation?
Yeah. Yeah, so actually I say to parents and even, healthcare professionals, teachers, you are an adult, don't try to be a teen. So you don't have to be teen-like to connect with young people. That's absolutely wrong. You just be yourself, speak in your language, but the thing is to be authentic and respectful and have no judgment to who they are. That's the more important part. So not to try to be like them, but to respect them and to not judge them.
Okay. So now we're going to pause for our Mindfulness Minute, where we are going to take a deep breath in, breathe in the positivity, and breathe out the negativity.
Good day and welcome to another mindful moment. Today I'm going to talk about being mindful of our thoughts. In any given day, we know that there are 60,000 different thoughts that go through our minds. And what's important to recognize is that we are not our thoughts. We can have thoughts, but they don't necessarily reflect who we are. I want you to think of your thoughts almost like clouds in the sky, or perhaps like the waves of an ocean. And when I talk to young people about this, I get them to imagine a scene where they are out at sea. So I get you to imagine with me, just close your eyes, and you're lying on beautiful blue water. And as you breathe in and out, you're moving gently with the waves. And when you feel that we're getting overwhelming thoughts, this is a great one to do. As we breathe in, we're going to say to ourselves, I am the ocean. And as we breathe out, our thoughts and feelings are like the waves. And you let those go. When you breathe in again, I am the ocean. My thoughts and feelings are like the waves as we let go. And one more time, I am the ocean. My thoughts are the waves. Good. And that reminds us that our thoughts are passing by. They're not who we are. And it particularly reminds us to be here now.
It's Rome, and we are here. We're chilling with the boys. We're living with the kids. We're doing this all for the PED CARES Foundation. So we need you at home watching us to go donate, donate, donate. Head over to the pedcares.org and send that donation, whether it's via credit card, direct transfer, because we want to make sure that the kids of our pediatric emergency department get the best possible care that they can get, because we need to take care of the next generation. The future lies with the kids. You all ready? On three, we go and say yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yay! The PED CARES Foundation. And we are back from our mindfulness moment. So, Dr. Pemberton, we're talking about the adolescents, right?
Yes.
So we talk about all of the cool terms that they would use now. But then if something is wrong with them, sometimes you may ask your children, is something wrong? And they might just say, nah, I good, or I cool. How does a parent break through that barrier now to actually find out what is wrong?
So the first thing I say to parents is trust your instinct. If you recognize that your child's behavior is changing in a consistent and persistent way, oftentimes there is a problem. So the emotions and moods of teenagers are like roller coasters, happy 1 minute, annoyed 1 minute, excited the next minute, sad the next minute. And that's normal. But if over weeks at a time, so 2 weeks and more, you recognize that your young person is isolating themselves, or is sad, or is not eating, or is eating too much, so changes to their behavior that remains the same over a period of time is what we call a red flag, that there could be a concern happening.
Right.
In addition, if you see changes to their functioning, so their grades are slipping, or teachers are saying they're not logging on to class in the current COVID context, or you recognize that they're not spending time with their friends or siblings, those are other signs that something could be very, very wrong. So even if they're saying to you the words, all is okay and I'm fine, you have to look at their behavior. You have to look at their non-verbal communication. Are they making eye contact, or is looking on the ground? Do you see evidence that they're crying, their eyes are red, things like that? Once you see these things happening as a parent and you sense within yourself that something has changed, act swiftly to see what's going on.
So then you have a child in the house and you ask, and their response is, leave me alone. How do we as parents now respond to this? Because you're picking up all these signs that something is wrong, and then you ask and they say, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
Are the parents to leave the child alone, or
Absolutely not. So what we want to do is be gentle and consistent with approaches. So when a young person says, leave me alone, you don't just barge in there and break down the door. I've had parents taking off locks and taking off hinges. That makes no sense, because that's just leading to more conflict. But what you might say are words like, well, I understand that you don't want to talk right now, but I will come again tomorrow morning. Or I think that what you're saying to me is that right now is not a good moment, but maybe after dinner. Or maybe perhaps we can go and watch a movie or take a walk. So you just have to find a way to not put pressure in that moment. Reassure them that you are there and that you will come again, and leave that door open to the communication. But then you have to go back and try. So fighting in that moment is likely to be counterproductive, but you want to let them know that you are concerned and that you love them and that you care and that you will revisit the topic and try again.
And then what about sometimes a parent who may be too much of a friend? Like you're trying to so relate to your adolescent that now you're more of a friend than a parent.
Right.
How do they define that border, that definitive line between parent and friend?
So that boundary, essentially.
That boundary.
So in the same way that I was saying, parents really should not use the young people speak, in the same way they have to remember that your role of as being a parent is to parent, to guide, to supervise, to provide safety, to provide health. And so when decisions need to be made, even difficult decisions, you as parent need to make them, even if your young person is not happy in the moment. One thing about adolescents is that they don't often recognize in the moment what is good for them in the long term. Parents have the benefit and wisdom of experience, and so as parents, you take that experience and you guide your child in the most appropriate way, whether or not they want it today. One day they will recognize the reasons that you made your decisions.
Because I know some parents are afraid to make those hard calls with the children because they don't want to break the friendship that they would have developed. And they are afraid that if they correct the child too harshly, that the child will no longer consider them that confident. Where
Right.
that's like me and mommy real good. I could tell her anything. And then mommy comes and corrects me now.
Right.
And then mommy not so cool again. So I'm not going to tell mommy anything that happening with me and whoever in school or what is going on with me. Is there a danger with that, with them losing that connectivity between the child being able to open up with them and them being able to correct the child?
So this is where communication and language comes in. So parents are encouraged to, again, use words like, you may not understand this now, but I don't think you should take the car and drive your friends because you've had your license for only 4 months. And I don't think that you are ready for that responsibility. I'm not saying that you're a bad driver. I'm not saying that you will never be able to take the car, but just not at this moment.
Right.
Allow some more time to pass so you can practice more and get more confident, and then you will have the responsibility. So again, it's all about the explanation. It's all about taking that time. Again, reassuring. So even though you can't do it today, that does not mean never. It just means one day in the future. In our Caribbean context, we will just say, no, you ain't getting the keys and end of talk, right? To which a young person will respond with conflict or anger or frustration. So we have to move and change that paradigm, use language, take time and reassure. And young people, they do understand and they get it. It's just that we have to recognize that they might be disappointed or frustrated or irritated, and we as parents and adults can't meet them with that same aggression. We have to be the ones to allow that to diffuse and then supervise them going forward.
There's a term, I'm so bored, that you will hear. Is it that they are really bored, that they need something to do, or is it that they are lonely?
It can mean all of the above. So sometimes I am bored, it's just that there's nothing that I want to do that's available to me in this moment. I am bored can mean I am lonely. My friends are not reaching out to me. They took me out of a group chat. You know, all these little dynamics that could be happening. I am bored could actually also mean that my brain is so anxious and so frazzled, I don't know how to focus. So I am so bored can mean many, many different things. And so I say to parents, you sit down next to them and you ask them exactly what are you feeling? What thoughts are going through your head? What's happening in your life right now? And then you're better equipped to separate, is this true boredom from I am overwhelmed, from I am depressed, from I am isolated? Because it can mean any of the above.
And they may not be able to express it unless you sit and have that discussion.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Dr. Asha Pemberton, for joining us. We're tapping into the minds of the adolescents right here on Home Front. Thank you very much to Dwellings and to our PED CARES Foundation. We're doing it for the kids, so make sure you go donate, donate, donate. My name is Rome. Thank you very much for joining us once more. You baby boomer. It's Barbara, I'm talking to, she telling me about falling. I said, you can't use that word.
Nah, that's an XY something. That's an XY.